Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Heat's Erik Spoelstra on Jaime Jaquez Jr. working through inconsistency amid rising star selection. While Miami Heat star Tyler Herro awaits hearing the hopeful news of being an All-Star, one player on the team that will be in San Francisco for the weekend will be Jaime Jaquez Jr. selected as a sophomore to the Rising Stars event. While it has been an up-and-down season for Jaquez filled with injuries and setbacks, he has the support of head coach Erik Spoelstra and expects a turnaround. Before Miami hosted the Cleveland Cavaliers on Wednesday night, Spoelstra spoke before the game to Clutch Points about the work from Jaquez behind the scenes to work through his inconsistency. Even still, Spoelstra would say that in the career of a young NBA player, it's not always going to be smooth sailing. He's working at it, this is part of the grit you have to develop as a professional athlete. It's not always going to be smooth sailing, Spoelstra said. It's not always going to be linear, your jumps and your improvements. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. I think these are opportunities to work through things, and he's had 3 or 4 times this season where he's really started to find where his role can be. And then usually something would happen, change of rotation or an injury or an illness, nothing major, but it would just, add to that kind of inconsistency, with his environment, but he's working through it and he'll be just fine. Asked Erik Spoelstra about Jaime Jaquez Jr. getting into the Rising Stars event and working on obtaining consistency. He's working at it. This is part of the grit you have to develop as a professional athlete. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. Jaquez still offers his superpowers to the Heat in the form of his aggressiveness when driving to the paint, gaining an advantage over his defenders for easy points. While it was working last season, leading to back-to-back Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month honors and an NBA All-Rookie First-Team nod, he's now been scouted by opposing teams, making him more vulnerable to different looks on defense. Still, it hasn't helped that several injuries and sicknesses have hindered his improvements, like just recently as Jaquez missed the Heat's double overtime win over the Orlando Magic due to a stomach illness. Mitchell scores 34, the Cavs never trail in win over Heat. Donovan Mitchell scored 34 points, Ty Jerome added 20 off the bench, and the Cleveland Cavaliers never trailed in a 126-106 win over the Miami Heat on Wednesday night. It was Mitchell's 14th 30-point game of the season, his 5th in his last 7 outings. Evan Mobley had 22 points and 15 rebounds for Cleveland, which got 13 points from Georges Niang and 12 points and 10 rebounds from Jarrett Allen. Tyler Herro and Terry Rozier each scored 22 points for Miami. Bam Adebayo had 21 points and Duncan Robinson finished with 13 for the Heat, who were out-rebounded 47-35. Cleveland improved to 29-2 when holding teams to 116 points or less. The Cavs are 9-7 otherwise, and 33-0 when leading after 3 quarters. Cavaliers, Darius Garland, averaging 21.7 points per game, was held out to rest, the second game he's missed this season. We obviously have all the numbers and the data and all that. I'm just thinking of him first, Cavs coach Kenny Atkinson said. Heat, Miami was held to 41 points in the first half, tying a season low. The Heat then scored 43 points in the third quarter, with Herro getting 8 points in the final 40 seconds to get Miami within 94-84. Just after Miami got within 8 early in the fourth, Cleveland went on a 7-0 run in 44 seconds. Mitchell's three-pointer with 10:15 left made it 101-86, and the Cavs kept control from there. Heat trade Jimmy Butler to Western Conference contender, acquire former DPOY in blockbuster 3-team proposal. The NBA trade deadline is in 8 days, and Jimmy Butler is still a member of the Miami Heat. Despite multiple team-imposed suspensions, including a current indefinite one, the 6-time All-Star appears to be no closer to finding a new home. As numerous basketball analysts and experts craft trade proposals to try to end the Butler drama, ESPN's Bobby Marks joined the fun on Wednesday. Marks came up with two separate three-team blockbuster trade ideas that would ship Butler out of South Beach, one including the Memphis Grizzlies and Toronto Raptors and the other featuring the Grizzlies and Washington Wizards. Both potential deals center around Butler joining Memphis and Miami receiving former Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart. As Marks notes, prior to the Los Angeles Lakers landing forward Dorian Finney-Smith at the last minute recently, the third-seeded Grizzlies, 31-16, were positioned to acquire him. Marks added that the framework of Memphis' offer was elite three-point shooting guard threat Luke Kennard, former undrafted free agent John Konchar, and a 2025 protected first-round pick. Kennard is on an expiring $9.2 million contract and has bird rights as a free agent, meaning he has to approve any trade. He has $1.4 million in unlikely bonuses. The team he is on wins the NBA championship, that count toward the apron. Konchar is owed $13.2 million over the next 2 seasons, Marks explained. Since GM Zach Kleiman took over in 2019, the Grizzlies have never traded one of their own first-round picks outright. Kleiman sent one to Boston as part of the Marcus Smart trade, but that was acquired from Golden State. As for Butler, the Grizzlies are the one team with the contracts, draft picks, and apron flexibility to trade for the former All-Star. The unknown is whether Memphis sees Butler as a rental for the remainder of the season or as a player to invest in for the next 2 seasons. Here's the first 3-team blockbuster involving Memphis and Miami that the ESPN scribe proposes. Grizzlies receive, Jimmy Butler. Heat receive, Brandon Clark, John Konchar, Marcus Smart, 2025 top 14 protected first-round pick. Raptors receive, Luke Kennard, 2026 second-round pick, via Lakers, cash considerations. Butler would give the Grizzlies a new big three, joining 2-time All-Star point guard Ja Morant and former Defensive Player of the Year Jaren Jackson Jr., making Memphis a tough out in the playoffs. There is a calculated risk in acquiring Butler, considering he can be a free agent in the offseason, Marks said. But the risk is worth it when considering the Western Conference is wide open this season. And even with Butler's $48.8 million salary, Memphis stays under the luxury tax. The second possible trade includes almost all of the same names, but the Grizzlies would also acquire veteran shooting guard Josh Richardson, who's been limited to 8 games this season and hasn't played since mid-November, and the Heat would get a top 8 protected pick instead of top 14 selection. Grizzlies receive, Jimmy Butler, Josh Richardson. Heat receive, Brandon Clark, John Konchar, Marcus Smart, 2025 top 8 protected first-round pick. Wizards receive, Luke Kennard, 2026 second-round pick, via Lakers, cash considerations. Though he's shooting a career-high 54% from the field, Butler's 17.0 points per game are his lowest since the 2013-14 campaign, and his 4.8 assists are his worst since 2018-19. Butler's also headed for his 7th straight year in which he hasn't played more than 65 contests in a season, adding risk to any potential suitor. Still, Marks argued that the Grizzlies could be the best fit for both the Heat and the Marquette product. Out of the possible trade destinations, Memphis gives Miami the best options for players who can contribute now and future flexibility, he wrote. Smart's and Clark's contracts expire after the 2025-26 season, and Konchar has 1 more year. In this deal, the Heat barely avoid paying the luxury tax and drop below the first apron, saving $35 million in combined salary and tax penalty this season. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Marcus Smart? Leave your opinion in the comments.